Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and I spent some time today listening to this hearing, I guess it was. Well, markup on resolution authorizing issuance of subpoenas by the House Committee on the Judiciary. Oh, goodness. Well, I'm going to spare you all the Democrats, okay? But I did pick out a few of the Republicans who had some good things to say about it. Basically, the Democrats put forth a resolution that wants to authorize this committee to issue subpoenas. 5 of them specifically to certain people, and you'll hear those mentioned as some of them talk. They want to subpoena Mueller's entire report. They want to see absolutely everything. Well, the thing is, Jerry Nadler started out and he was telling about how, we have precedents from before, the impeachment hearing with Clinton and then the Watergate stuff and everything. We have precedents that we can have all this material. And he even got out books and things and brought them in and said, here was what we got from this and that. Well, the thing is, the Democrats were not real happy about what happened with Clinton. And after Watergate and everything, they decided that, maybe we should change some laws. And so they did. And not just them. I mean, it was, Republicans too. But the laws were changed as to what a special counsel can and cannot do and the limitations of the special counsel. And one of them is that they have to provide all the information to the Attorney General. I mean, this is part of the law that Congress passed. And then the Attorney General is the one who can decide how much of it can be released. Okay? And that's what Barr says. Now, he is planning on releasing everything he can. But if you watch the video that I did on the MoveOn organization, I think they are already now implementing their 500 events because they think that it's not going to be released. And it isn't going to be released completely. Okay, it can't be by law. Again, Congress passed the law. Were they not paying attention? The law says they can't do that with the grand jury testimony and stuff like that. They really can't, especially if it deals with ongoing investigations. And there are a lot of ongoing investigations happening right now to try to get to the bottom of this. And it's being done by the Justice Department. So they can't release a lot of that stuff. Plus, there are people in there that it's not even related to Trump and it would be damaging to some of the people, and they are innocent people. They're kind of like innocent bystanders and they're getting caught up in this. So that's what Jerry Nadler was saying. And you're going to hear, some of the people responding about that, some of the Republicans. They wanted to add a short little thing onto this resolution that Nadler proposed. They wanted to add at the end that they had to adhere to the certain law that was put out there that limits grand jury testimony, etc. It's really scary that we have the people here, the guy in charge of the House Judiciary Committee. He wants the Attorney General to break the law and to give Congress something that they do not have a right to. But Jerry Nadler says, we have a right to it. Yes, definitely. But if you watched my last video, then you know that from the president's lawyer, they do not have a standing on this. There are some things that the executive branch can do and that the legislative branch doesn't have the ability to overstep their boundaries. But anyway, so I'm going to play some of these for you. And I think they did a really good job. They made some very good points. At the end, I have one from Laura Ingraham. And I want to play just that little clip about the Mueller investigation because I think she makes a really good point about Mueller and the Buzzfeed thing that he put out there and corrected really quick. And so anyway, I'll play that at the end. So stick around for that, okay? Here we go. It's several of them. I'll put them back to back.
Unfortunately, as we saw in the first quarter of this committee, we're starting the second quarter of this committee off in the same vein, and that is desperately searching for something on the president. When we understand this, then we begin to look. Because instead of dealing with issues that this committee is authorized and should be dealing with, we're moving on to subpoenas, and that for several reasons I cannot support. The first, the subpoena for the Mueller Report and its underlying evidence commands the Attorney General to do really what the unthinkable is. Remember, this is something to remind folks. The Starr Report and the Mueller investigation were not under the same authorization. We keep conflating that around here. They were not. And this is why we need to understand this. Basically what we're now saying is we're going to break and asking the Attorney General to break his regulations to break the law. The Attorney General's entire mandate is to enforce the law, and he's expressly forbidden from providing grand jury outside the department in a very limited and narrow exceptions. Congress is not one of the exceptions, and the chairman knows it, and I would disagree with his characterization. I respect my chairman, but I'll disagree with his characterization of the Starr Report because they're under different regulations. They were put out and sent out, but when it came to grand jury material, it was material that by law must be kept secret. It's grand jury material. It represents statements which may or may not be true by various witnesses. I wish many would understand that. Salacious material, all kinds of material that would be unfair to release. Those are not Doug Collins' words. Those are my chairman's words. This was at a time in which this is not a new idea. Right now, the only thing is there's a hope against hope that we're going to find something. It was just actually said, we need to start now so we can begin to go down to the courtroom because we know we're not going to find anything. And even if it did. And I love the comment just a moment ago that there may be, and I love how we do this, may be things in there that is not for up to the Attorney General to decide right or wrong. It was not. It was Mueller's investigation that the Attorney General passed on. Here's what we found. This is the problem we're seeing right now. But you know something? A different political landscape compels the chairman to adopt new standards of fairness, ignoring existing law and demanding material he once considered unfair to be released. As much as the chairman and I may want to view this material, it is fundamental underpinning of our justice system, and the law we cannot. In the face of laws and rules he finds inconvenient, the chairman demands our nation's top law enforcement officer to break the rules and the regulations and the law. This is reckless, it's irresponsible, and it's disingenuous. It's also confusing since the Attorney General is doing exactly what he said he would be doing, making as much of the report public as possible under federal law and departmental policy, under regulations, understand this for the media here today, under regulations written by Janet Reno and other Democrats don't require him to do this but in the name of transparency, he is. He may even furnish us the report as early as next week, yet the chairman plows ahead. What's the rush? Spring break, probably. We don't want to wait till May. We don't want to wait till the report comes out. The Attorney General has never said he's not going to provide exactly what the regulations say he's to provide. Why are we doing this again? Because I guess we're going out of town and we don't want anybody to forget we're doing something. We need a press release. We need to name people. The interesting thing here is, second, the subpoenas in this wonderfully vague deal that we're voting on today, aimed at 5 individuals, are completely misguided. Quite simply, they're to the wrong people. Understand what I'm getting ready to tell you. 2 of the individuals are cooperating with the ill-advised investigation. Remember, the 81 letters have provided over 3,000 pages of documents. The chairman is rewarding their cooperation by announcing their subpoenas before even notifying their lawyers. The other 3 individuals responded to Chairman Nadler's initial inquiry and have indicated willingness to cooperate. Democrats never followed up with their lawyers either. In fact, my investigators have had more contact with some of the individuals on the 81 initial letters than the majority has. These 3 individuals could not have any documents responsive to the original request because those responsive documents all came during their time at the White House, making them presidential records. None of these 3 have custody of responsive documents. The chairman knows this as well because they have received letters on this. Why would we ignore such obvious facts? Because Judiciary Democrats conduct oversight via press release. Their investigation into 81 Trump associates has yielded not the dividends they were looking for. After 1 month, the only revelation is something we knew already. They've embarrassed themselves by prejudging conclusions that the president obstructed justice. Now we've acknowledged the next stop in the grinding political axis in the governing. What is amazing here is despite the fact nearly 30 others have received Chairman letter have not responded at all, and despite everything going on. So the message is clear. Here's what's happening. If you cooperate with this committee, you will get a subpoena. If you ignore it, Democrats will return the favor. This seems like a counterintuitive way to conduct oversight, but it does sound familiar. Remember the acting Attorney General, Mr. Whitaker, who agreed to come, who agreed to sit here, and was yet rewarded with a subpoena? And oh, by the way, before he ever got here, we caved. We just did away with the subpoena. I'm not sure the purpose of the subpoena with this majority. It seems to be we want to use it because it sounds good, but yet when it comes down, we don't want to use it. And now we're back at it again because this is all preemptive. 5 of the people who have been actually listed in this for subpoenas today have been cooperating or have given advice to this committee, but have never really been followed up on. And what they have said is, we're helping, but you're now giving us a subpoena. And as far as the Attorney General's gone, he said, I'm giving you the Mueller Report. I'm giving it to you, as I should under regulations. But undoubtedly, that's not enough. Undoubtedly, that doesn't make enough press releases. So I guess what we do is we put people's names on a press release. We tell them that we're going to subpoena them now, although they've actually already cooperated. You know, it reminds me of what I'm having here, and I've made this comment many times. I respect my chairman, but we just disagree on this, and that's the way that it'll be, and that's the way we're going to have it. But it reminds me of the old guys back in my hometown when they wanted to go fishing and nothing was biting. They just take a big fishing trip and go out, nothing was biting, and one day this old guy just got tired of it. Instead of catching anything the way he should, he just reaches in his back pocket, pulls out a piece of dynamite and throws it in the pond. I can't find anything, so I'm just going to blow up everything and maybe something will come to the top. This committee is better than this. This committee can do this better. Why are we here today doing preemptive subpoenas? Because we're going to be out for a while. We're not going to be here for a while, and we need to keep the story rolling. The story rolling is there's some innuendo, there's some possibilities that may be in this report, but we can't wait to see it. Unfortunately, what will happen, my friends, is this. Christmas will come again. They opened a present that they thought early nothing was there. Now they're dying to open another president. At the end of the day, this president and what the report of the Mueller Convention said was no collusion. They know no obstruction. And when we understand that, when we move forward with that, if we can't get what we want, we'll try and try again. Maybe that's the new theme of this committee. The little train that kept looking for something that says, I'll try, and I'll try, and I'll try. But at the end of the day, the president's still the president. The economy is still moving forward. The regulations that we put in place are there. And at this point in time, the Attorney General, although he has been smeared repeatedly, is doing exactly what the regulation says. And for that, congratulations, Mr. Attorney General. You get a subpoena. With that, I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, I've been listening to the arguments this morning. I've been trying to decide what's worse. Was it last week when within 24 hours of the Attorney General issuing his summary of the Mueller findings, I listened to the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff, demand the immediate full release of the Mueller report without consideration for classified information. The chairman of the Intelligence Committee telling all 17 intelligence agencies over which he had oversight, essentially, I don't give a damn about classified information. I want the full release of that report. Or was it this week when I'm sitting here today listening to the chairman of the Judiciary Committee say, I don't care what the law says. I don't care what the special counsel regulation says. I don't care that the Attorney General has complied with both, that the Attorney General has done everything the law requires, everything the special counsel regulations require, and is promising to do more, but that's not good enough, and now he's going to be subpoenaed for that. In that theater of the absurd, I'm still trying to decide which of those is worse. The Attorney General didn't comply with the Democrats' arbitrary April 2nd demand deadline because he can't comply, because the law precludes him from complying, because the Attorney General wasn't going to commit crimes to comply with that deadline. Mr. Chairman, today I heard you say over and over again, Congress requires, there are constitutional rights or there's a necessity for this information. What I didn't hear was what law, the special counsel, where in the special counsel regulation does it say that the Attorney General must turn over an unredacted full special counsel report? The special counsel regulation doesn't say that. No law says that. The Attorney General has promised to provide as much transparency as he possibly can, but I'm afraid that's never going to be good enough for some in here. And that's because we're here having this argument because some, not all, of my Democratic colleagues promised the American people evidence that never existed. Some, not all, Democrats shouted fire in the theater of the American public, feeding a false Trump-Russia collusion narrative that never existed and that in fact some Democrats created with a fake, phony dossier. Now, Special Counsel Mueller, who some Democrats demanded be protected so that he could do his job, did his job. And the minute that he finished doing that job and said no collusion, that the Trump-Russia collusion narrative doesn't exist, is not real, protect Bob Mueller suddenly has become to hell with Bob Mueller. I have always believed that Bob Mueller could write the definitive narrative on how Russia tried to meddle in our election. I have never called what Bob Mueller was doing in that regard a witch hunt. But Bob Mueller has provided his findings to the Attorney General, who has accurately summarized those. And with respect to Trump-Russia collusion, Bob Mueller has said there are no witches. So these investigations should end. We should move on. We shouldn't be issuing subpoenas today. But if we're going to issue subpoenas today, let's not issue a subpoena for the Mueller report. Let's issue one for Bob Mueller.
Would the gentleman yield for a question?
Let me finish this thought. Let Bob Mueller come, and let's ask Bob Mueller whether or not he thinks that the report that he created should be disclosed without considerations for redactions of classified national security information or without redactions for grand jury information or other information relating to ongoing investigations. I may have questioned Bob Mueller's actions in certain regards, but I have never questioned his integrity, and I would be happy to hear his answer under oath before this committee with respect to that issue. So I urge all my colleagues to follow the law and to therefore support the Buck Amendment.
I've got to say, I've witnessed one of the proof positive of the brilliant mental acumen of our chairman as he explained adroitly how he was right 21 years ago and is right today. Just a work of beauty in that argument. As chairman said, 21 years ago, we should always remember this is a prosecutor's report. By its nature, it's one-sided. He also said it was salacious material, all kinds of material that it would be unfair to release. I would point out the gentleman didn't know exactly what all the material was at that time, and we don't know at this time either. In a February 1999 New York Times article, our current chairman called the Starr Report impeachment efforts a, quote, partisan coup d'etat, unquote. What has gone on in this country did absolutely, unequivocally, no doubt about it, involve collusion by people at the highest level with a foreign entity to try to bring down a candidate and then bring down a sitting president. That was collusion between top FBI officials, justice officials, a former MI6 intelligence officer who has been discredited by those same justice officials, FBI officials, but they colluded with him to try to bring down a candidate and now a sitting president. Enough is enough. At some point, we've got to say what will be written in the annals of history of this country as an outrageous attempt at a real coup d'etat was unsuccessful. The truth came out about who really colluded with foreign agents. And by the way, that did involve the Democrats' campaign and a foreign agent who was colluding with some of Putin's agents in all likelihood, as he was not even in Russia, but was talking by phone to Russian agents in his efforts to help the Clinton campaign and top justice officials bring down a sitting president. And for us to continue this outrageous assault on the office of president, even after the truth has come out that there was no conspiracy by the Trump campaign or President Trump or anybody in his family with Russia, and to continue to push, we're still going to make a big deal out of this. We can't stand the fact that the facts show it was the Democrats that colluded with foreign agents to try to change the outcome of the election. Enough is enough, for heaven's sakes. Let's please move on. There was a time when I loved and appreciated the current chairman's desire to protect privacy rights. I saw that dramatically eroded during the Obama administration, but I am still hoping and praying that our now chairman's once great desire to protect privacy rights and to try to hold back the bounds of what Orwell described as happening now. Obviously, the only thing he got wrong was the year, because we've seen what the Obama administration did with those Orwellian abilities to spy on American citizens. It's time to go back and clean up the mess that's been made over years of abuse. And this subpoena, the subpoenas, is not what we need to be voting for. And I support my friend's amendment.
Obvious from the very first organizational meeting that there is a coordinated attempt by the Democrats to undermine the President of the United States, and this is all about the 2020 presidential election. The public really wants us to work on big issues together, and I ask my Democratic colleagues to do that and quit this circus. I will yield time to the gentleman, Mr. Jordan from Ohio.
I thank the gentlelady for yielding, and I too wish to support the Buck Amendment. I would just ask the fundamental question: why are we here? Seems to me we're here because the Mueller report wasn't what the Democrats thought it was going to be. In fact, it was just the opposite. What did the Attorney General tell us that the principal finding of Mr. Mueller's report were? No new indictments, no sealed indictments, no collusion, no obstruction. On the question,
Jordan, will the gentleman yield?
I only got a little bit of time because
I only have a short question. You made reference to the Mueller report. Have you seen it? Because we haven't.
No, I've seen the principal findings from the Attorney General.
Well, would the gentleman yield for a quick question? I promise it's short. You reported that the report states that there's no obstruction. What's your basis for saying that?
Did the sentence where he said they did not find obstruction? I understand the sentence you're referring to where he talks about no exoneration either, but then there are 3 paragraphs after where he points out that there was not the elements of obstruction. In fact, the report, the letter from the Attorney General referencing the special counsel report said no new indictments, no sealed indictments, no collusion, and as I just pointed out, did not find obstruction. On the question of collusion, was very clear. He said there were multiple opportunities for people associated with the Trump campaign to collude, and they didn't. So multiple times where the forbidden fruit was placed in front of them and they didn't bite. But all that does, I would also point out this. There's been reference from the Democrats relative to Watergate and the Clinton special counsel. Watergate, there was a break-in. With Clinton, there was perjury. With the chief charge of this special counsel's investigation, there was no collusion. But here we are today. Well, actually 3 weeks ago, the chairman of the committee launched 81 letters to 60-some different individuals. And now today we're going to subpoena documents that the AG said he will give us in a matter of days. But maybe the most important point, I think, is the one that my colleague from Texas made, Mr. Ratcliffe. The idea that the chairman of the Intelligence Committee said he wants everything made public, including classified information, and the idea that the chair of the Judiciary Committee, the House Judiciary Committee, said this week, that he wants everything made public, including grand jury material. That's maybe the scariest thing of all. So the Attorney General has said he's going to turn this over in a matter of days. Let's wait. Let's get the information, and then let's look at it then. With that, I would yield back the remaining 20 seconds to the gentlelady from Arizona.
So those are our people in Congress who are representing us on this particular committee. They did a good job, but it fell on deaf ears. I'm afraid the Democrats were definitely not listening because, of course, then after they did this, they took a vote, and it had no impact whatsoever on any of the Democrats. They all voted together to pass this resolution. So, but at least they're on record. They did call for a roll call vote, and so they have everybody on record with it. It just is very frustrating for me to watch. I can't imagine what it's like for these guys to be there, and this is their work environment. Wow. Talk about a hostile work environment. Ooh. Anyway, this is the clip with Laura Ingraham, and I wanted to play this because I think she makes a really good point.
Embarrassment. And for the Democratic theory here to be correct, think about what has to be. Bill Barr, an internationally respected legal mind and former Bush Attorney General, would have had to knowingly distort Mueller's fact-finding on both collusion and obstruction. And two, Mueller, Barr, and most everyone involved in this investigation would have to be in some way in cahoots, working to protect the president at all costs. Now, tonight we do have reports from the New York Times that there are anonymous investigators from the Mueller team who feel that Barr's summary was incomplete. Well, the report doesn't say who is upset in the New York Times or what they're really upset about. It's kind of murky. We'll wait and see if anything comes of that. But why would Mueller stand by without objection if Barr had skewed in his lengthy findings? It's a 400-page report, right? In a 4-page summary. Well, answer, Mueller wouldn't do that. Now, remember, it only took him hours to correct a false report from Buzzfeed earlier this year. And also remember, both Republicans and Democrats went to great pains to build Mueller up as a consummate pro, an upstanding citizen and legal mind.
So, you see what she said about Cohen and the Buzzfeed thing? When Buzzfeed came out and they put out the false information about Cohen, Mueller made a statement. It was unprecedented. He hadn't even done this any other time, but all of a sudden, out of the blue, he did it. Why? I think the reason why was because they needed that precedence. It was set, and now when the Democrats say, well, Barr is hiding something, you can come back and say, now wait a minute. Mueller called out Buzzfeed when they were wrong about Cohen. If Barr is wrong about this, about his summary, then why in the world hasn't Mueller called him out? Just like he did with BuzzFeed. Yeah. So that makes more sense now because I couldn't figure it out. When it happened, it was like, why? I mean, out of all the zillions of things he could have come out and said, this is a lie and that's a lie. That was something just recently that he did. And I think it was in preparation for the Mueller report being released. So now the Democrats can't claim that. If Mueller thought that Barr was misrepresenting him, he would say it because he did it for that BuzzFeed article. And so we now have that precedence. We know that he would do it. And I think that was a strategic thing that was done purposely so that now that takes another argument away from the Democrats and they just are running out of arguments. Really good. Anyway, so that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.